We know you want your children to succeed, but my next guest says you may be setting your kids up for stress, not success. He's advising moms to parent against perfectionism and instead raise happy, resilient kids. Dr. Matt Townsend joins me. You got my attention with this topic in a big way because perfectionism is such a huge buzzword at the moment. It's often focused on females, on women. And you're saying, no, this totally applies in the parenting realm.
No, in fact, 33% since 1989, people like self-identifying as perfectionists has gone up 33% since 1989.
Does that surprise you?
No. And some of it we'll show you in the end is a little bit of social media. So I'm going to give a little social media advice. But a lot of this has to do with the fact that college students get to school, get to college, and they can't function because their parents bred such success that if they don't see it, they freak. And then, so we got to blow up this myth of perfectionism. And some of it are things we all do all the time. I have my own kids that struggle trying to make their perfection thing work, and I bet a lot of it is me.
Really?
Yeah. So this is, we got to break the cycle.
One area I think a lot of households, a lot of families can connect to is the idea of that report card standard. Like if you're not getting A's, or if you're not getting B's, or whatever it is in your house, those grades are so important. What's your take on that?
Growth, not grades. We must focus on growth. Because the minute you turn to a grade, so a lot of people see a grade as a fixed thing that smart people get. But there's a lot of research, we talk about it on the show all the time, about from Carol Dweck, about a growth mindset. And we need our kids to understand that life is about growth. Growth comes in time, and as you grow over time, you'll get better and better and better, and slowly, incrementally work and get better. Grades start to create this tangible nature to everything we have, and once if it's not a grade, it's a touchdown. If it's not a touchdown, it's getting into a college. If it's not getting into a college, it's the next tangible thing after the next tangible thing. Sadly, though, our most important growth things aren't as tangible as we think.
I don't know, though. I'm forecasting as a parent, right? I've got a 2-year-old, so this doesn't apply yet. I don't know if I could completely ignore grades. Is that what you're saying? Completely ignore grades?
But what's the grade telling you? The grade is telling us that there's other things that we probably ought to be focusing on. Attention, focus, energy, what are they doing with their time management. So there's 50 things going on, but it's grades that we focus on.
So would you say then, though, it's not the most helpful thing to set a grade standard?
What I would do is I'd set a child standard.
Okay.
And I wouldn't make it about a grade. I'd make it about, we need you to be doing your best effort. We need you to be giving your all. We need you to be maximizing your talents and your gifts. And then I'd use all of that, and I'd let the byproduct be a grade. But I'd rather, and I'll show you as we go through this, focus on other things that really might make them stronger long-term than a grade, and let the grade be the byproduct.
Your next point, self-improvement over self-compassion.
We are so into worrying that our kid has to learn all of these things all the way through life, but there are certain things that help people learn to adapt and deal and be more resilient with life. And those are more self-compassion skills. Things like forgiveness. Do they know how to forgive themselves for making a mistake and others who have harmed them? Do they know how to actually be positive? Do they see positive, or are they constantly looking at what they're doing wrong?
So you're saying we're weighting self-improvement too heavily, that self-compassion needs to be the emphasis.
And self-compassion are a bunch of different skills that are actually very healthy, and you love them as a parent. You want them to be forgiving. You want them to actually be positive. You want them to be grateful, and you want them to have good healthy self-talk. But what we do is we don't actually focus on those. We focus on improvement. Did you get better? Did you do better at football? Did you do better in school? Did you get asked out on a date? Did you get engaged? We ask all these things that are kind of about growth improvements in very kind of fixed ways, instead of the real bricks that are undergirding every one of our accomplishments.
You want parents to refuse to ground the helicopter?
Yeah, well, they refuse to. I want you to ground the helicopter.
Oh, that's what they're, okay.
Quit your hovering. Quit your hovering. If you keep hovering over your kids, what are you telling them? That they can't do it. If you're always watching them, they know they can't do it. And then when they get to high school or college, they are looking for the helicopter to come in and save me. We've got to let them fail. We've got to get out of their way and allow them to truly fail, but actually gain some confidence that they won't fail.
Do helicopter moms know that they're hovering?
No, they think they're just being a really good mother.
How do you know that line?
Well, one way is if your child is asking you everything. If they're constantly looking for you to be there. Now, the dilemma is, once my child, if I hover, it makes sense to hover when they're a preschooler, right?
Sure.
But then I need to hover when they're a first grader because they're going to school, so I need to be there for that moment. Then I need to hover through their times tables. Then I need to hover. The problem with the hovering parent is once the child succeeds, you're going to notice other things we should be working on with that child, and then we're going to notice more and more and more. There will be a moment the helicopter needs to be grounded. When they're married, if you're hovering, it's going to get ugly. There's going to be a war between the ground and the air. So we've got to do it, because if not, these kids honestly don't believe they can do it because their mom or dad showed them they can't because they were so fixated on them.
You say parents who are parenting through perfectionism are always constantly raising the bar.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Well, we assume it has to be that way. We assume that once you've accomplished a goal, the next idea would be to make it a bigger goal.
Sure, advance it.
A better goal, advance the goal.
Step it up.
Sometimes you might not want to step up a goal because sometimes the goal's irrelevant. We don't need to get really, really good at things that aren't important anymore.
Give me an example of that.
We might keep driving our kid to keep going to competitive league soccer when they don't want to. But you're already really good, and you're really good in your league, so we move them to competitive league, and they hate it, and they're not great at it. But what do we do now? Go back to the other league? Why don't we just start taking a little turn and listening to what they say? Do they have the energy? Do they want to do it? But if we keep upping the ante, because there are things that don't need to be upped. Sometimes we don't need to up the ante to become more balanced. Sometimes we need to subtract the ante. Sometimes we don't need more. We don't grow by multiplication. Sometimes we grow by division. And we get a bigger number by dividing the stuff in our lives, and we start simplifying and we start shrinking.
That's wise.
But goal setting tends to be this more is better, and more is not better, especially when it comes to a person's behavior, because that's what drives perfectionism. More, more, more.
Another parenting trap, constant measuring.
We are so into metrics. We think it's the bomb, and we think it's important to measure everything. But again, the most important things in life you can't measure. You only measure with your heart. So if you're not careful, you're going to make everything a metric. And the minute you make everything a metric, it becomes tangible. And then what we lose is the intangible. So I get a good grade, but I don't know how to learn. I've got a good deal on that test, but I don't know how to actually think for myself. I got into a team or on a team, but I don't know how to be a team member. All these things that we're not measuring, and there's certain things that are a lot easier to measure. And in life, the easiest things to measure are usually the least valuable things.
Very true. Very
Sadly,
true.
but true.
You're concerned about the perfectionism that's being promoted on social media. Parents can't really control this, Matt, so how can we counteract it?
The way you counteract it is if you have a child that's a perfectionist, let's get off social media.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that needs to not be on Facebook or Instagram, it's the perfectionist.
But you know what you're saying. That's a hard rule to enforce.
Right. It is actually, interestingly, the only people that tend to do, or they're the ones that tend to take the biggest hit emotionally, are the perfectionists, because they can't compare, they can't add up, and yet they keep seeing all this supposed data and metric that they can't add up to.
Take it away.
Everyone else, honestly, that doesn't have perfectionism, it's probably not as big of a deal, except it's maybe a time waster. But the perfectionist, it runs counter to their psyche. So if there's anybody that needs to be off of it, it's anybody that's a perfectionist. So if you're a mother that's a perfectionist, get off it. If you have children that are perfectionists, turn it off. If you're a dad that's a perfectionist, turn it off.
That's a big one.
It's a big one. And again, think about it, it's only a certain percentage of people.
Right.
But it's the ones, honestly, of all people that need it. It's no matter what it is, it's like if you shouldn't have gluten in your diet, you ought to get off gluten.
I do think, though, I agree with your point. I do think they're the ones that might have the hardest time letting go of it. Right?
And the research actually shows that. The research shows perfectionists hang on to it more. It means more to them.
Yeah.
And they use it more. Likes matter more to perfectionists because it's an external validation.
You're a smarty.
I'm telling you.
We're grateful you're in our corner.
Yeah.
And hey, can you hear that? People in Idaho are cheering wildly because
So cool.
Dr. Matt Townsend
We're coming up there.
coming to you. You're going to Idaho Falls?
I can hardly wait. I can hardly wait. So here's the deal. Saturday, April 21st, you got to be there, 7 p.m., Eagle Rock Middle School.
Does that sound right?
That totally sounds right. 7 to 9. And we're going to go there and we're going to talk about marriage and relationships. It's the first one we're doing up in Idaho.
Yeah.
We'll have many more to follow, but be there on that night. Just go to MattTownsend.com to sign up.
You are answering the call of the people.
It's huge.
He's in demand, so Idaho Falls, lucky you. Sign up quickly. Those seats will fly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brett.